Well, of course, the first thing we had to do was find a space to put the furnace inside the house. And so it wasn't as difficult as we anticipated it to be, because we were able to utilize some mechanical spaces on the second floor that normally would be there if our furnace was in the garage. That, combined with maybe using some space from some closets, that was the number one issue to start with. And then from there, we obviously had to redesign the floor system so that we could get the ductwork in the floor system without having to build a tremendous amount of soffits in the houses. And then from there, we had to get the engineering done to match that and allow us to change the floor system. So I think those are probably the biggest things that we had to approach first. Actually, before we ever went in the ground, we had them involved right from the start, and we also came up with some issues during construction, which we knew we were going to, which was easy enough at that point to work through because everybody was familiar with who the others were they were working around and what their problems were. One of the things in our design phase up front that we had determined based on our heating contractor's input was that he was going to need about 16 inches of height between the subfloor on the second floor and the ceiling on the lower floor. So that raised our house by about 4 inches from the I-joist that we were normally using. And so that was somewhat of a concern to us as to what the aesthetics were going to be on the outside of the house. Plus, secondly, that meant that we were going to have to add another riser on our stairs. And in some of our plans, it was virtually impossible to add another stair because we just didn't have the room to do that. So, yeah, all in all, it really wasn't that difficult once we identified where the problems were. They were pretty easy to solve. Yeah, we use a downdraft furnace mounted on the second floor, and we drop it into a plenum box that's in between the floor joists. And from there we have a main trunk line that runs, in this case, crossways or parallel to the floor trusses. And then we have the individual heat ducts that come off of that. So it was imperative that we had open web trusses so that we weren't tied down to one or two places to run ductwork. With the open web trusses, we could virtually run ductwork anywhere we wanted to. Well, it wasn't difficult at all, actually. We laid out the systems in the house. We designed the system, and then we went to each one of our trade contractors. Now, the design of the system was done in conjunction with our HVAC contractor. But then we had to get the plumber involved and the electrician to a certain degree, and we had to get our engineers involved, like I said earlier. So it really wasn't that difficult. We just sat down and we all worked through the issues and went to work. Overall, it didn't affect the construction schedule. Obviously, we were able to pick up a day or two at the post and beam stage because of no heating that we had to wait for, but it took us a day or two longer at the top out stage, so that was a wash. We haven't done anything actually particularly, other than our big concern was our return airs, and we wanted to get the return airs away from the furnace as far as we practically could. Because we figured that's where most of the sound was going to come from. But the furnaces that we're using are 95% sealed furnaces, and so those in itself don't make much noise. Any noise that we get is strictly air movement, so that's pretty easy to deal with. We did not, and we did not put solid core door on the compartment for the furnace. Well, like I said, we didn't do anything special. The biggest lesson is probably that we have to make darn sure that we don't have conflicts with the mechanical things that we install at rough-in. Recessed can lighting, gas piping, fire sprinklers, plumbing in general, and of course heat ducts. That took a lot of coordination, and particularly the first couple, until everybody was comfortable with what we were going to have to be aware of and how we were going to have to install all of those pieces. It took a lot of babysitting, but beyond that, we haven't had any problems with it.